I still remember that night, Christmas in Hollywood Hills 2025. The house looked like something out of a movie. A 15-foot pine tree glowed in the corner. Imported from Canada, lights blinking in sync with All I Want for Christmas Is You. The air smelled like cinnamon, champagne, and money. Skylar's scream pierced through the music. "Oh my God, is that a Lamborghini?" Everyone turned toward the driveway where an orange Urus waited under a massive red bow. Dad laughed proudly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Mom had her phone up, live streaming every second for her 50,000 followers. The comments were flooding in. Goals. Dream family. I sat cross-legged on the white fur rug holding my gift, a plastic piggy bank shaped like a rocket ship. I opened the rubber plug at the bottom. 2 crisp $1 bills slid into my palm. Mom didn't even look away from her phone. "It's for your future house fund, sweetheart. You're such a great saver," Dad added. "And Skylar needs a car that fits her brand." He kissed her forehead as the cameras flashed. The crowd laughed. I smiled too, though something inside me cracked. My fingers tightened around the cheap piggy bank. Under the glittering tree, 3 untouched boxes sat quietly. Patek Philippe watch for Dad. Hermes Birkin for Mom. A Leica camera for Skylar. Gifts I spent months saving for, forgotten beneath fake snow and wrapping paper. I stared at the reflection of the Lamborghini's lights dancing across the ornaments and thought, this was the exact moment I stopped belonging to that family. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. The house was silent by 2 in the morning. That kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, just heavy. The laughter, the fake cheer, the clinking glasses from hours ago still echoed faintly in my head. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the piggy bank on the nightstand. Its glossy plastic gleamed under the dim lamp. The rocket-shaped toy looked ridiculous now, almost mocking. $2 for my future house. The clock ticked. 2:17 a.m. I exhaled, long and shaky, and finally stood up. My suitcase was already half open. I didn't have much, just things that still felt like mine. I packed with a kind of precision that only comes when you've already decided there's no turning back. First, the teddy bear. Its fur was worn thin, one button I slightly loose. My grandmother had hand-sewn it before she passed. The last thing she ever made for me before the fire took our old house in 2005. I pressed it to my chest for a second, breathing in the faint scent of lavender. Next, the folded piece of paper. My first rocket design, sketched in pencil when I was 16. Crumpled, yellowed at the edges, but it carried the moment I first believed I could build something that reached the sky. I slipped it into a plastic sleeve and laid it gently in the suitcase. Then came the small, heavy object wrapped in blue silk. My NASA gold medal from the mini satellite project. The one that had made my parents proud for about 5 minutes, before they shifted the spotlight back to Skylar's new modeling contract. Everything else in the room, the designer sheets, the gifts, the framed photos, felt foreign, like props from a play I didn't audition for. Downstairs, the house hummed faintly, the sound of expensive refrigerators and quiet surveillance cameras. I walked barefoot through the hallway, every step measured. In the kitchen, the marble counter reflected my face. Tired, calm, determined. I took out the platinum credit card my parents had insisted I use. "It's for convenience," they'd said, "so we can keep track of your spending." I placed it flat on the counter, pulled the scissors from the drawer, and sliced it clean in half. The metallic snap echoed louder than it should have. I left both halves neatly side by side, a little symbol of closure. Then I placed my house key next to it, the one engraved, Harper Residence. That name no longer felt like home. When I stepped outside, the air bit into my skin. The driveway still carried faint tire tracks from the Lamborghini. The red bow was half collapsed on the wet pavement. I opened the door of my old Tesla, paint-chipped 250,000 miles, a slight rattle in the back seat, and slid in. For a moment I just sat there, hands on the wheel, watching the lights of Los Angeles shimmer below the hills. The city looked distant, glittering, and different. I turned the key, and the soft hum of the electric engine filled the silence. As I drove through the empty streets, the radio came alive with Last Christmas. I almost laughed, the irony was too perfect. I turned it off. All I could hear was the hum of the tires against the cold asphalt. The road twisted up the Angeles Crest Highway. Snowflakes drifted down, faint and silent, catching in the headlights. The world felt suspended. No past, no future, just the sound of the car climbing higher and higher. My heart was beating too fast, but it wasn't fear. It was freedom. I whispered to the night, "I'm done." I left behind the mansion, the cameras, the performative love, all of it. Everything I'd been taught to earn, prove, and endure. That night, I drove off with 2 $1 bills and one decision: never to go back. The morning fog was thick when I reached San Francisco. It rolled across the Golden Gate Bridge like slow-moving waves. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls, texts, notifications from Mom, Dad, even Skylar's assistant. I tossed it onto the passenger seat and let it buzz until it died. When I parked near the bridge, Zoe was already waiting, standing in a gray coat, coffee in one hand, waving like we hadn't just spent 5 years apart. The moment she saw my face, her expression softened. She didn't ask questions. She just pulled me into a hug. That's the thing about real friends, they don't need explanations. They just know. "Come home," she said simply. Her apartment in the Mission District became my safe haven. For the first time in years, I woke up without hearing my mother's voice through a podcast or seeing Skylar's face on a magazine. The following week, I officially transferred to SpaceX's Bay Area office. By the end of the month, they promoted me to lead propulsion engineer. My days blurred together: code, blueprints, late-night testing, the smell of burnt coffee and cold metal. The hum of machinery became my heartbeat. At night, when the city lights flickered outside my window, I would open my notebook and draw engines, flight paths, the faint sketch of a rocket that could go farther, faster, freer. Freedom, however, has its price. The calls from Mom started first. 42 in a week. Then came the voicemails. "Lena, sweetheart, you're stressing me out. The doctor says my blood pressure's high. Please come home before I end up in the hospital." I deleted each one. Then Dad's texts. "You took the Tesla, didn't you? That's theft. I can report it." I clenched my jaw. The car was mine, registered under my name, paid with my salary, but facts never mattered much in that house. I muted every number, blocked them all. Skylar tried next. A single message: "You're being dramatic like always." I didn't reply. The silence that followed was loud, but it was my silence, and that mattered. Days turned into weeks. I rebuilt my rhythm: gym before sunrise, work until midnight, cheap ramen dinners eaten over schematics. Zoe and I spent weekends wandering bookstores, laughing over bad takeout. For the first time, I felt like the world didn't owe me anything, and that was strangely comforting. Still, sometimes at night, the memories crept in. The sound of that Christmas laughter, the red bough fluttering in the wind, my mother's voice echoing through a live broadcast. Those moments tried to claw their way back into my chest. But I would remind myself I chose this. I chose distance over approval, peace over performance. One Friday evening, I sat at my desk, the computer screen glowing blue. A notification popped up, a friend request from my mother. I stared at it for a long minute. The profile picture showed her smiling behind a studio mic. Captioned, "Family is everything." Without hesitation, I clicked delete request. Then I opened Instagram and scrolled to the top of my followers list: my parents, Skylar, their friends, the photographers, the publicists, all gone with a few taps. My feed went blank, a black screen reflecting my own faint outline. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. Felt clean. I closed the laptop. The city lights shimmered beyond the glass, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That night, I fell asleep knowing something simple but profound. Cutting ties isn't about hate. It's about healing. And I was finally starting to heal. The email came on a quiet Tuesday morning. I was halfway through adjusting a propulsion simulation when the notification blinked in the corner of my screen. Subject: Harper Family Invitation, Wedding Celebration, Napa Valley. For a second, I thought it was spam. The name Harper Family had become a phantom. Something I deleted, blocked, buried under layers of silence. But when I clicked, there it was. A digital invitation, gold-edged letters against a white background, the same polished tone my family had always used to hide the cracks. You are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Claire Harper and Thomas Weston, June 2026, Napa Valley Estate. There was no personal note, just an RSVP link and a generic footer. We'd love to see you there. I stared at it for a long time. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. It had been 6 months since I'd left Los Angeles. 6 months since I'd cut the thread that connected me to them. And yet, somehow the idea of walking into a room full of Harpers, smiling, pretending, lying, made my chest tighten. Zoe walked in with 2 coffees, her expression instantly reading mine. "What's wrong?" I turned the screen toward her. She read it quickly, then looked at me. "You're not thinking of going, are you?" I shrugged, but my hand trembled slightly as I reached for the coffee. "I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe I owe them a face-to-face goodbye." Zoe leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "Or maybe closure comes dressed as confrontation." Her words landed hard, simple, sharp, true. I didn't answer. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying old memories like static noise. Every scene felt the same. Skylar's laughter, Mom's voice narrating life like a broadcast, Dad's approval tied to performance. And me, always the background character in my own story. But now I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd rebuilt my life from scratch, forged my own name in steel and rocket fuel. Maybe Zoe was right. Maybe facing them wasn't about revenge or forgiveness. Maybe it was just finishing the sentence. By morning I decided. I was going. The mirror caught my reflection the next day as I got ready. And for once I saw someone I didn't recognize in the best way. The black silk dress hugged my body cleanly, slid high enough to whisper confidence but not arrogance. The red Louboutins gleamed under the light, their sharp heels a quiet statement, power doesn't always shout. I twisted my hair into a high bun, letting a small tattoo peek through at the nape of my neck. A tiny rocket, inked the night I got promoted. A reminder that I didn't just build engines, I built escape velocity. Before leaving, I picked up 2 things from my desk. The old plastic piggy bank, the same one from that Christmas night, now filled with neat stacks of $2 bills, one for every week I'd lived on my own, and a silver USB drive. On it, 20 years of proof that I hadn't imagined the imbalance, the favoritism, the erasure. When I closed my apartment door, the air smelled of coffee and ocean salt. San Francisco's quiet blessing. The drive to Napa took a little over an hour. The freeway curved north, unraveling into open hills and rolling vineyards. The sky was a deep, forgiving blue, the kind that almost tricks you into believing everything is fine. I lowered the window halfway, letting the wind rush in. The playlist Zoe had made for me months ago came alive, soft acoustic guitar, faint vocals, the kind of music that makes you think instead of feel. Rows of grapevines stretched endlessly on both sides, glinting gold and green under the sun. Somewhere between exits, I realized my hands had stopped trembling. I wasn't scared anymore, just aware. Every mile closer to Napa felt like approaching a storm you could finally see. The estate was exactly what I expected. Elegant, excessive, familiar. White chairs lined the lawn, crystal glasses catching sunlight, guests in muted designer colors. There were people I recognized, cousins, distant relatives, old friends of my parents, each smiling too brightly, too fast. The wedding wasn't even mine, yet all eyes flicked toward me the moment I arrived. The Harper daughter who left. The one who didn't come home for Christmas. The rumor whispered between champagne sips. I walked through them quietly, my heels sharp against the stone path. The air smelled like lavender and secrets. Someone called my name, my aunt I think, but I just smiled and kept walking toward the main house. The ceremony hadn't started yet. I had time. The library was empty when I entered. Dark wood shelves lined with untouched classics, a massive oak table in the center, sunlight streaming through tall arched windows. The air was cool still. I sat down, hands folded over the piggy bank in my lap, and waited. They came exactly as I expected, 30 minutes before the ceremony. The door opened softly, and my mother's perfume filled the air before her voice did. "Lena." I didn't stand. "Mom. Dad. Skylar." They looked different, not older but smaller somehow, as if the weight of the last year had carved out parts of them that confidence used to fill. Dad spoke first, his voice low. "You're really here." "Seems like it." I said evenly. Skylar was the first to break. She moved closer, makeup immaculate but eyes red-rimmed. Lamborghini's gone, she blurted out. They took it. Repossession. I maxed out the cards. I didn't know how taxes worked. Stop. Mom placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. Her own voice cracked. Lena, things got bad. Really bad. We lost the house in Hollywood Hills. I had to sell my ring for therapy bills. Your father's out of work. Dad sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead. 12 million on the market. We're 4 in the hole. I made bad decisions. Trusted the wrong people. For a moment, the silence between us stretched like a wire. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out the piggy bank and placed it on the table. Its cheap plastic gleamed under the chandelier. Next to it, the USB drive, small, silver, precise. Do you know what this is? I asked softly. Mom blinked. Lena, please, we didn't come here to fight. This, I interrupted, tapping the pig, is the last gift you gave me. $2 for my future house. I nudged the USB closer. And this is 20 years of evidence of how much that $2 was worth to you. Dad frowned. Evidence of what? I looked at him, calm, measured. Favoritism. Neglect. Everything you justified in the name of love. Skylar's lip trembled. Lena, don't. But I was already clicking open my laptop. The screen came alive, playing old footage, Christmas 2005. Skylar's 10th birthday. Ponies, fountains, a rented carousel. $50,000 of celebration. Mom laughing, Dad toasting. Then my 10th birthday, same year. Walmart cake, paper hats, 10 people in the backyard. The footage flickered between moments. Skylar in Paris, Skylar's modeling lessons, Skylar's $180K tuition. All paid in full. Then me, scholarship to MIT, zero family support, working night shifts in a campus lab. Mom's hands covered her mouth. Lena, that's not fair. It's factual. My voice was steady, cold. You called it balance. I called it survival. I closed the laptop and pushed both items toward them. This is the price tag you put on me. You've had a year to reflect. So tell me, was it worth it? No one spoke. Dad sank into a chair, face pale. Mom's eyes shimmered with tears she didn't dare let fall. Skylar looked at the piggy bank like it might explode. Finally, I said, you came here hoping for a reconciliation. Fine. Here's my offer. 6 months of family therapy. Real therapy, not PR statements. And you respect my boundaries. No calls, no manipulation, no pity. If you can't do that, this is our final conversation. The air in the library felt heavy, thick with the smell of old paper and regret. Skylar's voice was the first to break the silence. Lena, I didn't know how much I hurt you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a girl drowning under the weight of the world she'd been given. Maybe for the first time she realized the Lamborghini couldn't outrun guilt. You didn't have to know, I said quietly. You just had to notice. She nodded slowly, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. I stood, sliding the piggy bank back toward me. This stays with me. You've already taken enough. As I walked toward the door, I paused for a moment. The sunlight hit the glass, scattering golden fragments across the shelves. I turned back once, meeting their eyes. This isn't revenge, I said. It's clarity. Then I left, heels clicking on marble, the sound sharp, final. Outside, the air felt lighter. Somewhere in the distance, wedding music began to play. The world moved on. And so did I. The silence that followed felt almost sacred. The kind that holds the weight of things, finally said. The room, so grand and carefully curated, suddenly seemed small. Books lined every wall, but none of them could script what came next. I stood there, hands steady on the back of the chair, and looked each of them in the eye. My mother, my father, my sister. The same 3 faces I had once tried so hard to please. The same 3 people who had measured love in gifts, validation, and applause. Let's make this simple, I said, voice even. You want reconciliation? Here are my terms. Their eyes flicked toward me, wary, expectant. 6 months of family therapy. All of us. No excuses, no image management, no walking out halfway. And after that, if we even begin to rebuild something, you'll respect my boundaries. You won't call me at midnight. You won't guilt me into visits. You'll treat me like an adult who owes you nothing but honesty. I paused. The air was still, heavy with the scent of old wood and faded perfume. If you can't do that, I continued softly, then this is goodbye for good. The last two words seemed to hang in the air, suspended like dust in sunlight. My father looked down, his jaw tightening. Pride had always been his armor. Without it, he looked almost human. My mother's lips trembled, but no words came. And Skylar, poor Skylar, sat perfectly still, her eyes glossy, fingers twisting the edge of her napkin until it tore. The colored light from the stained glass window washed over her face, painting her tears gold. For a long time no one spoke. Just the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the faint laughter of wedding guests outside. Finally, Skylar whispered, "Lena, I'll go. I'll do the therapy." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I don't want this to be the end." I looked at her, not the girl from the billboards or the Instagram filters, but the sister beneath it all, fragile and frightened. There was something genuine in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Maybe loss had humbled her. Maybe pain had made her real. "I hope you mean that," I said softly. Then I turned to my parents. "You have my number if you decide to take it seriously. Until then, I need distance. Real distance." My father opened his mouth to speak, but I stopped him with a small shake of my head. "Not words," I said. "Actions." That was the moment something shifted, not in them but in me. I felt the last thread of old guilt snap free. For the first time, I didn't need their approval. I didn't need them to understand me. I had already built a life that proved I could thrive without it. I stepped back from the table. The light from the stained glass spilled across the floor, catching the shimmer of my shoes. My dress moved with me, black silk against the warm breeze sneaking through the open window. I gave one final glance toward the room. "Take care of yourselves," I said. "And don't contact me until you're ready to do it right." Then I walked out. The corridor was long and quiet, the sound of distant music echoing faintly. A wedding march for someone else's happy ending. As I pushed open the heavy doors of the estate, sunlight flooded over me, warm and clean. Outside, the late afternoon air smelled of grapevines and summer dust. A soft wind brushed against my face, lifting strands of hair from my bun. The black silk of my dress caught the light, fluttering like smoke as I descended the steps. In the distance, I could hear laughter, champagne corks, the clinking of glasses, life continuing. But for me, it wasn't noise anymore. It was background. I took a deep breath, the kind that feels like starting over. For years, I had carried the invisible weight of being the forgotten daughter, the one who worked twice as hard for half the love. Now, standing in the Napa breeze, I felt weightless. Not because they'd apologized, they hadn't, but because I no longer needed them to. The Tesla waited at the edge of the gravel path, sunlight glinting off its silver hood. I opened the door, glanced once toward the estate behind me, and smiled, not in triumph but in peace. As I drove away, the vineyard stretched endlessly before me, rows of green and gold rolling under the soft Californian sky. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running. I was simply leaving, and it felt right. The San Francisco skyline shimmered like scattered diamonds outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. It was Thanksgiving night, but not the kind I grew up with. No forced smiles, no matching sweaters for photos, no competition over whose success made better small talk. This one was mine. A long wooden table stretched across the living room, handmade from walnut. I'd built it myself over 3 weekends, sanding it until the surface gleamed. Around it sat 12 people, colleagues from SpaceX, Zoe with her usual glass of Pinot Noir, Mateo with his easy grin, and a few friends who had become family. Candles flickered between bowls of roasted vegetables, golden turkey, and pumpkin pie. Laughter bounced off the walls, easy and unpolished. I didn't need to pretend here. On the shelf behind me sat something small and quietly symbolic. The old plastic rocket-shaped piggy bank from last Christmas. Its once faded paint was now clean and polished, almost proud of its scars. Inside it held 104 $2 bills, one for every week since I'd left Los Angeles. Next to it, resting carefully atop the shelf, was a tiny gold missile pendant. A gift from Mateo on my birthday. A reminder, he'd said, that even the smallest propulsion can take you to space. The night carried the kind of warmth that doesn't come from temperature but from belonging. Every so often my eyes drifted toward the city lights outside. A quiet thank you to the version of me who once drove through a snowstorm to freedom. As the evening mellowed, Zoe raised her glass. "To Lena," she said, her tone both teasing and proud. "The only person I know who can design a rocket engine and a Thanksgiving centerpiece in the same week." Everyone laughed. I shook my head, smiling. "To second chances," I replied softly, "and to knowing when to take them." The words hung in the air for a moment before the conversation flowed back into laughter and stories. Later that night, when most guests had gone and the candles had burned low, my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer. But something in me, maybe peace, maybe curiosity, decided to swipe the screen. It was a video call. Skylar. Her face appeared, framed by the faint yellow light of what looked like a small apartment kitchen. She looked different, softer somehow, without the makeup, without the filters. There was a tired honesty in her eyes. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I replied, a cautious smile tugging at my lips. Behind her, a drying rack full of ceramic mugs caught my eye. Uneven shapes, clumsy handles. Skylar noticed and laughed a little. "Yeah, I've been making things. Pottery mostly. Keeps me grounded." She lifted one mug toward the camera. A pale, slightly crooked cup with small rocket doodles scratched into the glaze. "I made this for you," she said. "It's not perfect, but neither am I guess." Something in my chest tightened. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," she interrupted gently. "I got a job at a coffee shop. Been paying off my debt little by little. It's slow, but I'm proud of it." Her voice cracked. "I know I can't fix the past overnight, Lena, but I want you to know I'm trying. For real this time." I looked at her, the sister who once measured love in luxury, now learning it through clay and humility. "I see that," I said quietly. "And I'm proud of you too." She smiled, shy and genuine. For the first time in years, there was no resentment between us. Just two women who had both learned painfully that love isn't a transaction. When the call ended, I sat there for a long moment, phone still warm in my hand. I turned toward the city outside, the fog rolling gently across the bay, and exhaled a slow, steady breath. The next morning, as sunlight poured through the windows, I replayed the conversation in my head. Not out of regret, but gratitude. Healing doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures. Sometimes it shows up in the form of a crooked ceramic cup. Over the next few weeks, the small ripples continued. My father, once the man who lived on ego and scotch, had gone 90 days sober. Zoe told me he'd started volunteering at a mentoring program for tech startups. He wasn't chasing power anymore, he was chasing purpose. My mother, on the other hand, had turned her guilt into something unexpected. A podcast called When Parents Get It Wrong. It wasn't glossy or perfect, but it was honest. She spoke about favoritism, generational pride, and how love, when conditional, becomes control. Her first episode, the one where she admitted to losing her daughter's trust, hit 1 million downloads in a week. It didn't erase the past, but it mattered. That night, after work, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, the one Skylar had made. The glaze was uneven, the handle slightly off-center, but it fit perfectly in my hand. The city shimmered below, a mosaic of yellow light stretching into the horizon. Somewhere between the noise of car horns and distant laughter, I realized how far I'd come. For the first time, my life wasn't defined by reaction, it was defined by choice. I'd chosen distance, then peace, and now maybe, just maybe, forgiveness. I turned toward the shelf again. The piggy bank stood under the soft glow of a lamp, its cheap plastic reflecting light like glass. It wasn't a symbol of pity anymore. It was a timeline of growth. Inside it wasn't just money, it was every decision I'd made to value myself. Every moment I'd chosen peace over guilt. Every mile between who I was and who I became. I ran a finger over the golden missile pendant beside it and smiled. Freedom had a price, but it had also given me wings. Hours later, when the guests had gone and the city slipped into quiet, I stepped onto the balcony. The air was crisp, the kind that bites softly at your skin and reminds you that you're alive. The lights of the Bay Bridge stretched across the dark water like threads of silver. From here, San Francisco didn't look chaotic. It looked infinite. Mateo came up behind me, his hands finding my waist, his voice low and warm against my ear. "You still keep that piggy bank, huh?" I smiled. "Not to remember the pain," I said. "To remember the day I decided I was worth more than $2. He chuckled softly, pressing his chin against my shoulder. And what's it worth now? I walked over to the shelf, opened the little rubber plug and tilted it gently. $208 spilled out, crisp folded twos fluttering like tiny wings, and something else. A note. It was from Skylar. To Lena. Thank you for teaching me how to get back up. I'm learning to fly now. No Lamborghini needed. I read it twice, the corners of my lips curling into a quiet smile. Stepping back onto the balcony, I held the paper between my fingers. The wind caught it almost instantly, carrying it upward before letting it drift out over the glowing bay. For a moment I watched it dance in the air free, weightless, until it disappeared into the night. Somewhere in the distance a piano began to play softly, notes slow and deliberate, like closure set to music. I leaned against the railing, eyes reflecting the golden light of the bridge, and whispered to the wind, "Goodbye and thank you." The camera would fade here, the music swelling, the city shimmering. And over it, my voice would return, calm and resolute. If you've ever been underestimated, remember this. Your true worth isn't measured by what others give you, but by the decisions you dare to make. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us how healing often begins the moment we choose ourselves.